Hey y'all, this is Hamza, and I'm super happy we get to hang out for a little bit. Hey guys, welcome to Hanging Out with Hamza. This is Hamza. Today I have a special guest on. He is a close friend, also a mentor, and somebody that I've really looked up to for a long time. I've been wanting to have him on for a while, but our schedules have both been pretty hard to align lately. Just to give you a brief introduction to him, his name is Dr. Robin Bethell. He is a dentist, entrepreneur, business owner, and family man. And he's also a connoisseur of good music and good movies, and that's how we kind of got along on that. Um, just to kind of give you a background story before I pass it on to him, I've brought this up before, but the way I knew Robin was kind of like a clashing of fate. I found out about Robin before I even got into dental school. I had gotten accepted recently, and the girl I was talking to at the time showed me this funny article, and she was telling me, one day this could be you. And I looked at the article, and it was Austin's Sexiest Dentist, and it was calling this guy McDreamy and all this stuff, and I laughed at it, and I kind of just kept that article just as like a funny thing to look at. And fast forward a couple years later, one of my close friends, Ann Rebek, told me that he really wanted to introduce me to this dentist. And so we connected over COVID, started talking, realized that we vibed really well. And then I looked him up online. I was like, this name looks really familiar, and this guy looks familiar too. And I ended up realizing it was the same guy that I saw in that article a couple of years ago. So it's kind of funny how that worked out, but turns out he is still Austin's sexiest dentist, and he's also a great dude. So it's nice to go under his wings, and I feel like it was kind of all kismet the way it all worked out. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it on to him, let him introduce himself, and we'll go on from there.
Hamza, that is the sweetest introduction ever. You flatter me. I think the way I remember it is Anwarbeck told me that there was a super awesome, creative, handsome dentist that was a FIGS model in Houston that was moving to Austin. And I remember checking you out on social media and thinking how creative your stuff was. And I liked your style, liked your music taste. We had the same kind of love for cinematics, and I think it's really incredible you've been able to creatively express yourself
Thanks, man.
while pursuing a dental profession.
I appreciate it. Well,
So,
I'm glad that we had that mutual respect, because I think you and Anwar are two major people that have influenced like my decisions to move to Austin, and the paths I've been taking in my life, especially with just like honing in on things I'm good at and trying to be better at them. And I think it's one of those things about like how you're always, what is it, like the five closest people you're with is a representation of who you are. So I've always tried to like stick around people like you on Rebecca, because I think it not only influences me to be a better person, but it shows that you can still be a good person and still be successful while maintaining the sense of humility. So it's been a honor and pleasure getting to know you more and realizing you're the same person that I thought you were when we first met. And yeah, so with this podcast, I know that it's usually about passion projects and things that you love, but I think there's so much more to you beyond that. And I think, we will cover that, but I also want people to kind of get to know you more, just like I do, and why I really respect and admire you. So I wanted to start off just by kind of letting people know where you come from, like your origin story, like what you're about, and how you got into dentistry.
well, that's very cool. And you're so humble, by the way.
Thanks, man.
Um, Origin story. I grew up in California, wanted to be a dentist since I was 10, just because I liked drawing and art and science, and it kind of blended the two. Made a public statement to my family when I came back from a trip to Thailand that I was going to be a dentist, and I kind of stuck with it. I saw how my parents lit up when they heard, oh, he's going to be a doctor and a dentist, and I came from my dad is an engineer, construction. My mom's a teacher, and they just encouraged it along the way, and it was kind of just one foot in front of the other. You research what do you do next to become a dentist, and then you do the next step and the next step, and that's what led me down this path. I realized that most dentists don't have a similar story, And the joke in dentistry is, dental school is where people who don't get into med school go. But I absolutely am in love with the profession. I think that it is one of my greatest passions, and I want to preserve and protect it. And moved to Austin after 8 different associate positions. I started in San Francisco, moved to Fresno, where I grew up. I grew up in Clovis, but did a VA hospital residency. Took a job in an office in Fresno, where I learned a lot. But after about 4 months, decided I needed to get away from home, and was lured into San Diego. And I worked in 3 different offices in San Diego. This was at the kind of the peak of the economic crisis, 2008. And I was doing hygiene. I was working 6 days a week, barely making ends meet. It felt like I had, UOP's private school, and I had tremendous debt. It felt very burdensome to me because of loan payments and interest, and I feel like I was working really hard to make $100,000 a year, living in California. Half that goes to taxes. The other went to just cost of living and to paying down school debt. I remember I was dating a girl at the time, and she was a teacher. And whenever we got on dates, she had to pay because I was broke. I
Wow.
was so broke. And then one of my best friends from UOP, his name is Brian Degoni, had connected me with some of his good friends from his class, and Yahya Mansour and Sam Zarabi.
Wow.
And they were starting a dental office in Texas. They came down for a weekend. We all hung out. I'll never forget. We had a great time. It's 4th of July. We were partying at the beach and living a good life. And the next morning, we're getting ready to go have breakfast. He's like, "Move to Texas." And I said, "Why?" And he thought, "You'll make 3 times as much money." And I said, "Sign me up." And so I took my Western Regional Board that year, and I moved to Dallas. Worked with Rodeo Dental for 3 years, learned a ton. Those guys were incredible entrepreneurs, incredible risk takers, and that was something I was naive to, is just the amount of risk it takes to open a small business, and learn as much as I could, realizing and dreaming the whole time that I wanted to have my own interpretation of what dentistry should be. So I was kind of thinking about what my office would look like, and when the opportunity came to move and to open my own, I came down for South by Southwest, listened to some good music, went to a Jim James concert, and with one of my best friends in Austin, and just like, dude, this is the place I want to be. And
What year
so
was that?
this is 2000. It had to be 2011.
Oh, wow. That was a great year for Austin.
Yeah, South by was
That was my,
popping.
yeah, I was in college at that time, and I think that was peak Austin. 2011 to 2013, that era for me was.
Very Austin thing to say. I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
I've only been here since 2012, but
Yeah.
man, it was magical.
Yeah.
Cool vibe, great creative scene. Still had that kind of keep Austin weird
Yeah. I
thing
think it was the
going.
tipping point. It was right when people were realizing it was a place to be, but it wasn't, marginalized or like gentrified just yet.
Totally.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it was really incredible. I remember having a conversation with Sam, just saying like, "Look, I love this company. I'd like to be a partner in it." And at the time, they weren't really looking for other partners. And I said, "Then I got to go." And I came down here looking for a spot to open. Hired this practice locator consultant. They showed me like a map of Austin, and it was pretty saturated then.
Mm.
And he's like, "These are the places did not go." And like in the hub was Anderson Lane, Old Austin. There's like 11 dentists within a quarter mile. And I was walking around this space, and this like skater dude, realtor, was walking by, seeing me peeking windows. And there's a little courtyard garden at the Village Shopping Center, which was being renovated at the time. And I I fell in love with it, and I said, "Sign me up." My consultant's like, "Why'd you hire me? This is like the worst place to possibly start a dental office." And then the next 2 to 3 years, I was just buried in like all consumed in making this business work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, did you feel was that was the same time when I guess how was the housing market at that time, or like was there a big like fluctuation in the economy or anything that you were worried about at that time, or was that pretty good time to buy practices?
Texas seemed to be pretty good
Yeah.
then. By today's standards, yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only gotten harder
Right.
for dentists to open office in Austin and most big cities in Texas. It was kind of, never forget when I moved here in 2009, 10, to Texas, it was like the gold rush. Like
Hmm.
so many dentists were leaving West Coast to
Yeah.
come to Texas.
Which is funny because same thing's happening now, but in other fields. So it's kind of just a reverberation of that. But
Yeah.
yeah, because I was going to ask that because I was thinking, my next question was what challenges do you see now as a practice owner versus what you went through? Do you feel like it's kind of one of those things where history just tends to repeat itself, or do you feel like the challenges now are a lot tougher than they were back then? Because sometimes,
Good question.
we always say like, oh, times were so much better back then, but our parents said that, and then our grandparents said that. So I feel
Yeah.
like it constantly happens. But is that the same thing with dentistry?
Yeah. Objectively, I think that it is harder now than it was then. Subjectively, of course. I mean, I remember 2012 being so anxious
Yeah,
because, the city of Austin's really, really bad at permitting and
yeah,
really, really bad about business development, especially small business development. And my project was supposed to be a 6 month long tenant improvement. It was a shell space. Ended up taking a year and a half.
that was your first one.
The first one,
Wow. And just to give you guys a backstory, he's currently developing his, which, what number is this one?
we're trying to get our fifth office open now.
Okay, and you're still dealing with permitting issues, except
Yes,
worse this time
it's
around.
worse this time.
Yeah, okay.
Back then it was bad, and just to put things in perspective, I mean, the rent price on our first was $17 per square foot and $3 triple net. The rent price of the new one we're trying to build is $35 per square foot and $15 triple net. And triple net's really just property taxes for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a 5x increase in the last decade.
Do you feel like the return balances out in terms of like the growth of the practice over time as opposed to back then, or do you feel like the same with the,
Well,
the amount of population that's grown in Austin in the last couple of years?
you know, I didn't have an issue with patients back then. I mean, it was pretty much, I mean, thanks to that article you quoted and
Yeah.
several other marketing things that I did, we were really busy in the first year. I mean, I was at capacity,
Yeah.
by myself, had to hire an associate.
Okay.
I still think that's the truth now. The problem is the numbers aren't making sense as much. I mean, to have a business that ran at a 25 or 30% margin back then was achievable. But with the increased costs of everything, including employees and material costs, and dental insurance is basically stagnated. They haven't increased reimbursements. That margin's really tight.
Mm-hmm.
So when you write out like a pro forma of how your business will do now, the math's different.
Yeah.
Those risks are certainly higher.
Yeah, and we've talked about this because that's my next step in my dental career. And, I'm kind of at the point where you were when you moved to Texas. And I asked you these questions, and, I'm sure there's a lot of dental students and associates that are listening to this that are probably curious about their steps going into it. And, if you were to kind of give them any advice right now going into practice ownership, is there anything that you think you wish you knew not only back then when you were first doing it, but even now with what you've learned over time?
Yeah, there's definitely, man, you learn so much when you're doing it.
Yeah.
Um, the first thing I would say is in your first years, it's about experience and absorbing information, becoming good at dentistry itself. Nowadays, the most successful offices are smaller and niche. Forrest Family, my first office was very broad and general. It was in-network insurance. I wanted to see blue-collar people like my parents were. When I grew up, I wasn't high-end cosmetic. It was just just do as much dentistry as you can and serve your patient population. Um, Nowadays, you see the practices that are super successful now. They're more niche. They're all in cosmetic or implants or um, there's all these white spaces that exist within our profession. Those ones are the ones that are seeing the most growth.
Do you still feel like corporate dentistry is taking over private, or do you feel like there's been a nice kind of separation between the two? Because I feel like it's kind of happened with the public market too, where customers are now focusing more on, like, I think in Austin it's more common where people want to see like independently made products, or they want to
Hmm.
support those kinds of brands. Whereas I feel like with dentistry we've had that that separation now between corporate and private. Do you feel like corporate is still taking over, or there's been a nice kind of divide between the two?
Corporate has advantages now that are much greater than 2012. I mean, to compete against corporate right now and marketing budget, cost of supplies, in insurance negotiations and things, they are at a significant advantage over small mom and pop. I mean, it's staggering.
And you haven't noticed patients kind of being educated about this and wanting to go the other route? Because I think the one thing that's been helpful in educating patients is that corporate, while having all those advantages when it comes to quality dentistry, has been very lacking, and that's something we've always had an advantage over.
Yeah. Well, this is a people job. It's a
Yeah,
people profession. People, I've heard the comparison that dentistry is going to be like pharmacology and,
like
there's no,
optometry and
an
all. Yeah,
optometry. It's so different
yeah,
though. I mean, people are comfortable going to HEB and Walgreens for their pharmacy,
yeah,
but they want to trust the dentist. Their hands are in their mouths. It's a super vulnerable position. I think we are somewhat insulated from the consolidation of medicine that we're seeing in other fields. But it is happening.
yeah.
And I think to your question about is it, you know, corporate taking over, I mean, I'm a single doc owner. I have partners, they're all dentists, but we're a corporation. We
Hmm.
have 5 offices, we have 14 associates in our group. Um, if you've seen one corporate office, you've seen one corporate office. They're all very different. There are Castle Dental, which gets the worst rep in I think Austin and in the Texas area, and they're a big corporate, and Aspen and some of the other ones. But you could find great providers in those groups, and you could
Right.
be a patient and have a great experience at Aspen,
Yeah,
or you can have a terrible one. And the likelihood is that that dentist that you loved at Aspen isn't going to be there in 3 or 4 years.
yeah,
It's a stepping stone.
right.
The hard thing for corporate is going to be retaining good people,
Hmm.
and that that's where the struggle lies. And I think the hand is stacked for corporate now just because of how expensive it is in dentistry, how expensive debt is. It's harder and harder for dentists to do what I did and branch out and open their own, so corporate will retain more doctors, if
Right.
that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I think like the margin of failure is a lot higher for private practices now. I mean, if corporate fails at one office, they have enough equity or income to just start another one or move to a different. I mean, that's Pacific Dental's whole kind of philosophy, based on what I've noticed, is they can just keep opening offices like Starbucks, and it doesn't affect them half as
Yeah.
bad as it would an independent owner from doing something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the big thing is the capital. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're deploying private equity capital, then it's a very different algorithm through your
Hmm.
head. I mean, you have to deploy the money. They're they're comfortable with some of their offices being losses.
Hmm.
If you're privately owned and you're using your own capital or bank debt,
Yeah.
you
It's
know,
a much higher risk you're
you're much
taking.
higher risk,
Yeah.
and you're not going to let one fail.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And yeah, all these things are kind of hidden from the consumer's eye.
Yeah. Well, it goes into my, so when you talked about having a niche market and something that you've really kind of excelled at, I think you have two markets that I've really noticed with. Obviously, um, Dr. Robin has a um, private office called Blue Door, and that one's focused more on cosmetics. And then you also have Invisalign, which is a big strength of your offices. So how did you kind of veer onto that path and focus on Invisalign? Was there something that drew you to it, or did you just kind of fall into it by chance?
Well, I loved orthodontics early on.
Okay.
So there was that passion. Brian Degoni, who was the dentist that led me to Texas, is an orthodontist. The dental school I went to is named after Degoni. Um, my orthodontist growing up was fantastic, hugely influenced my decisions to become a dentist. And I've always been drawn to it. But really, it was my patients and in caring for my patients in Austin, I had to offer that.
Yeah.
And Austin is a unique market. I mean, when I was working for rodeo, I was seeing populations that had high caries, high cavity risks, gum disease, things like that. And you come to Austin, it's a younger demographic, a lot of young families, even up in central Austin where our office was located. These are successful people who had access to health care. Didn't have cavities. I mean, they didn't have gum disease. What they had was functional disease. They had bite problems, things that are associated with stress, clenching, psycho-emotional issues that translate to teeth. So I was seeing a lot of this damage that was done, cracking, broken teeth, crowding, misalignment, even airway stuff, TMD stuff. And I didn't know how to treat it. And so Invisalign opened a door for me to correct some minor adult orthodontic problems, and it took off.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like,
This is early Invisalign when it was just starting out, right? So, or had it been
well,
around for a while at the time?
yeah, Invisalign's been around since the 90, late, like 2000 era.
Okay.
I was trained by Robert Boyd at Pacific. It was an elective when I was there. So I had been certified, and Invisalign used to require certification in order to use Invisalign.
Okay.
When I moved to Austin, I hadn't used it when I was at rodeo, and it would lapse. So you had to recertify every 2 years, and it was like a $2,000 investment. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember Cliff is a good friend of mine now. He's still one of the top reps for Invisalign, and he's a territory manager for the special markets. At the time, he was trying to get me to start using Invisalign, but he's like, "You got to pay for this course," and I like shut the door in his face. And I went and invested. I put some capital in Clear Correct. When Pumphrey's owned it. It was their manufacturing in Round Rock.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I learned a lot of the aligner fundamentals using Clear Correct for 2 years. Um, then they got bought by Strawman, and it wasn't until 2016 that they dropped that requirement. And Cliff came back to my office and he's like, "Dude, you don't have to take the certification again." Like they dropped it, and then I started using Invisalign again. It's a better quality product, and
Right.
patients recognize the brand. Um, so I switched back to Invisalign, and it's been off to the races since then. And I've really loved learning. It's one of those things, the more you get into it, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the few fascinating things I find about you is like, on top of being, a great person and everything, you are highly regarded in the dental world with Invisalign, especially. And you don't really like he hasn't mentioned it yet, guys, but his name is very reputable in the Invisalign community. People have taken his courses and learned a lot from him, and I think that's something that's really admirable, and I love your passion for it too. I was very curious about it, and I've learned a lot from you when I was using Invisalign to treat patients, and yeah, it's just cool because I think it goes down to this podcast. The best way to learn about something is from people that are passionate about it. And I think you've been very passionate about Invisalign since you started off with it. And it shows in just the way you talk about it and the way you treat patients with it. So, yeah, that is amazing. And then that also goes into Blue Door. How did you start that, and what made you want to kind of transition to cosmetic dentistry with that?
Well, it's mostly I just needed to get out of insurance contracts and insurances like restrictions in order to do all the things that I was learning about. People don't realize, but insurance contracts restrict doctors tremendously in what they're allowed to do.
Yeah.
And there's contracts that require certain fees. You can't use certain labs. It wouldn't make sense for Invisalign. It's a very expensive product to use as a doctor if your insurance doesn't allow it.
Yeah.
And so Blue Door was a way for me to break free of those restraints. And so I took COIS training and from 2018 to 2021. I ended up graduating, loved it, learned a ton about functional dentistry, periodontics, and wanted to apply some of these things, use some of the best labs in the world for cosmetic dentistry. And the Invisalign part, it's we use it at Forest Family and we use it at Blue Door. It really isn't any different. But we wanted to be able to offer discerning clientele a upgraded option.
Right. So kind of more of a boutique, like luxuries
Yeah,
type office.
it's
Yeah.
it's boutique. It's freeing. It keeps me doing what I love,
Hmm.
which is dentistry.
Yeah.
And oh, my phone's going off.
You're good.
Shut that off real
No,
quick.
you're good. I always forget to mention that I can cut this part out.
Hey, it's real life. You don't have to edit it out.
Hmm.
No big deal. But Blue Door is really fun. Now, I want to give it the caveat. Blue Door is not nearly as profitable and um, good business as Forest Family.
It's more of like your passion project. Like you knew there was going to be risks involved in it, but it's
Totally.
something you wanted to do.
Yeah, and Forest Family, without Forest Family, I couldn't do Blue Door.
Right.
And it's way more niche, and I love it. It's growing. It's slow growing. It's
Yeah.
not like Forest Family where it was like within the first year fully busy, and we're 3 years into it, and we have some maven clients that see these patients are like people I've known for years or connections through Austin that really want that exclusive experience. And
Yeah, the best thing I've seen in it is your kind of like full reconstructive smiles you've done for people, like starting from, from them needing like complete smile transformations and, correcting their not only their smile but their bite and their occlusion and everything. And it's been pretty incredible to see. And you've told me about the COIS course. It's definitely something I'd want to look into, considering all that. But yeah, if anybody's interested, definitely look into his Blue Door. And have you posted any of your photos for your smile transformations through Blue Door? Yeah.
on our Blue Door Instagram.
Okay.
Um, it's comprehensive. I mean, we do full mouth rehabilitations.
Yeah.
We do TMJ assessments. We work with. It's really cool because as I've taught for Invisalign, my network's expanded, and I have relationships with some of the best in each field.
Yeah.
And we bring it all together there, and it's really, really fun and exciting to give people excellence with no compromises.
Yeah. I don't think the general public is aware that cosmetic dentistry, while it is mostly cosmetic, there's a lot of functional involvement behind it. And you've taught me this, and I've learned the hard way a lot, where you can't just give a patient a set of veneers or like completely pretty smile without assessing the macro of everything and how they bite, how they sleep at night, like do they grind? Like there's so much more involved in the process instead of just sticking on some veneers. And I think that's another misfortune that we face as dentists, is a lot of dentists do that without looking at the macro, and that leads to patients having bad outcomes and then either hating dentists more as a result, or just getting jaded by the entire system of it. So that's another thing like I really admire, is you've taught me how to look at the bigger picture before focusing on the more finite details of cosmetic dentistry.
Yeah, I would say, just to add to that, that there's a huge lack of it in Austin. Austin's cosmetic scene is like as big of a metropolitan city as we are. We don't have it.
Yeah.
If you want great cosmetics, you go to LA, New York, Miami, but why not Austin? There are people who are trying to do it, but as a critic of our profession, it's just subpar.
Yeah.
The most important thing, though, I could say is that dentists who are failing at their cosmetic dentistry are failing at it because they don't know how to listen to patients. They don't know how to assess their risks. They see someone say, I want veneers, and they'll do everything they can to get them veneers without looking at the human aspects behind it. Do the veneers, do they look good with their face? So they do an adenofacial analysis and picking something that flows with them. Are they checking their risks for perio, there are risks for biomechanical acid erosion. Are they picking the right materials for that patient? And there are many materials, and each one's, you know, maybe better for different circumstances. And the listening aspect, the the law of instruments is, if you're a carpenter, everything, and you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And that's what I see in cosmetics in Austin. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
someone
because
goes hard on it. There's like everybody gets like piano key white
yeah.
teeth.
I think
You
the
know,
problem is, and I'm guilty of it too, in the beginning, is like you hear veneers and you just think dollar signs and you just immediately want to go to that process because
yeah,
it is a fun process to, do the veneers and see start to end. But yeah, like, like you said, you have to really like take a step back and have maybe even multiple appointments where you're figuring out what their needs are before jumping into it. Because the patient doesn't know what they need. They don't know that they don't self-assess until you ask them the questions that are necessary for that.
yeah.
And yeah,
I'd say the best thing I learned in Coice was something called a dental history form. And it's a risk-based approach to dentistry where the patients tell you what their risks are before you even meet them. And then when they come in, you curate the appointment around that, and they tell you what they want. I think that changed my world. I
yeah,
mean, especially we do it at Forest Family and we do it at Blue Door, but um, Forest Family, when you take a patient in, nobody, especially an adult that's successful, lives in North Austin, doesn't want to be lectured, about what their diet looks like,
mhm,
But if they tell you, hey, I have holes in my teeth, or I have acid erosion, or I have sleep problems, or I don't feel good about the way my teeth look, then you can have a conversation about it.
yeah,
And I think that opened my mind up to, you know, more comprehensive care and doing things for people based on what they tell you
right,
instead of me telling you what you need,
yeah,
or law of instruments, just, you're another piece of wood that I'm going to hammer a nail into.
yeah. So what do you feel like set you apart when you first initially started out at Forest Family? Like you saw the market, you got your practice, and you were thinking, okay, how can I set myself apart from the standard dentist?
Yeah, honestly speaking, it was the TV on the ceiling. It was
Okay,
such a silly thing at the time.
yeah,
Now you can't. It's ubiquitous.
yeah,
No office doesn't have TVs on the ceiling
yeah,
now. But I was like the first one to do that. We got Yelp reviews is the peak Yelp era. We had this patient, Kelly, and she was like a Yelp maven, man. She was the queen of Yelp. And she came in and she wrote us a Yelp review. And I remember you could see the analytics. Like that Yelp review got like 10,000 views on it.
wow,
And so we had all these Yelpers coming in, and we were giving them this great experience that they hadn't seen before. That was what the turning point was. And at that point, I'm still learning.
yeah,
I'm like, I didn't know, I hadn't taken Coice. I wasn't nearly as good at Invisalign as I am now. I wasn't nearly as good as restorative dentistry as I am now. But patients were, because they liked the atmosphere, and we were called like the most aggressively hipster practice in Austin. Probably, I don't know. It was like designed after a Wes Anderson theme.
yeah.
Like it was so hipster. We
I'm
like,
also going to add in that the practice is located on West Anderson Lane,
yeah,
and it's right next to an Alamo Draft House, which is like, an Austin staple for like great cinema.
yeah,
And if you walk into his practice, like he said, it does look like a Wes Anderson movie. It's got, the palette is all matching the green and everything, and then he's just got a beautiful practice, and I feel like it's also very rustic. Like it just feels very like lived in. It
yeah.
doesn't feel like a hospital setting where it's like whites everywhere and everything's pristine. And there's a lot of wood and a lot of natural
Yes,
stuff in there, and I really like that. And the location too is very hidden, but it's cozy in a way. It's like it feels like it's been there forever,
totally.
and I think that added to the quality of that place.
And that's what I was feeling when I was there. I wanted something that felt, like an expression of my passions.
Right.
And it really, Austin accepted that well. I don't think it would have succeeded in Dallas.
No.
I
Or
don't.
Houston. Like coming from Houston, I know that would have probably failed because it would have felt too indie and hipster and out there for people.
Yeah, it. I caught lightning in a bottle. It worked exactly where it was,
Yeah.
and I don't think it could have worked anywhere else. But it was super hipster. I mean, it was me.
Yeah.
It was like I love, craft things, and
Yeah.
it was made by my friends. Reclaimed wood furniture. It was very ecologically focused and had art that I had done. I drew these like forest animals. It was
Yeah.
like Fantastic Mr. Fox
Yeah.
meets a dentist office,
Yeah. And you even
like with
carried over to Blue Door because the door, his actual door to enter the office is a blue door and it's a rustic type, handmade, handcrafted door made by your friend, right?
yeah, yeah,
And
Sean
what was the
Springer.
story behind that? Did you tell him exactly what you wanted? Like, did you give him kind of inspiration of what you wanted it to be?
Oh, no, I let Sean do what he wants.
Okay.
So Sean, I give him a direction, like I need a counter,
And
and
he
this is
made
a
the
logo.
other stuff before that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Sean, shout out to Sean Springer, is a wood artist, and I met him in Dallas. When I moved to Dallas, there wasn't a huge indie scene, but by my second year living there, I found this like art niche scene, Bishop Arts District and Knox Henderson, and there was this little shop called We Are 1976, and it was like all this handmade stuff, and they like have flyers. Hey, we're having an event next week, and one week I was in there buying random knickknacks and records or something crazy, and they Sean was displaying this couch he made by hand, and it's like Danish style design. He was standing by it. He's just um like lean yogi looking dude with like long hair, and he's got tattoos of like
Just
wood.
exactly what you'd expect from a
Yeah,
wood designer.
and I remember talking to him. He was just so soft spoken. He's like, "Hey, come out to my little shack where I make all this stuff." And I went out and watched him, and like picture this guy, right? So he's covered in tattoos of woodworking equipment. He's like just loves. His whole passion is
That's
woodworking
awesome.
stuff. He was like living in a shack that he had maintained and redid, that had furniture he made, eating in chopsticks and bowls that he made. It was like it was very like romantic to see this guy's
Yeah.
love for his craft.
It's not often you meet people like that too. Like people
Yeah,
that have that skill. Like handcrafting is not a very common thing you come across anymore.
yeah, and he let me like design or have some say in the design, and we sat and drew pictures together, and he let me like work some of his saws and some of his planing machines, and he's done a part of every one of our offices
That's
since then.
beautiful.
So it's I love our
The partnership you have.
partnership, and
Yeah, I think that's like also beautiful because I feel like it's such a dichotomy between what dentistry is and what that is because dentistry is very like metal, silver, like a lot of just like industrial things. And then
yeah,
you have this handcrafted, handmade element to it, which is completely different. So
yeah,
it's a
it's
cool,
warm.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
beautiful. But yeah, I mean, going on from that, I think, with you being a business owner and with me wanting to be one, this is more of a selfish question, but how did you handle going from being an associate to a boss and handling people? I know that's always, you've mentioned this to me before, that that's one of your biggest challenges you face. And
yeah,
that also goes into another question of how do you hire an associate and what do you look for in associates, for
mm.
people listening to this and wanting to know how they can be the best associate for someone or how they can look for good associates in the future.
It's a complex question. Um, Man, so I'm not the best at evaluating people, and my whole philosophy I adapted from uh, some podcasts, Gary Vaynerchuk, and it's hire fast, fire faster, promote fastest. And basically, you don't know somebody when you interview them.
Yeah,
They're putting their best face on.
right.
You really get to know people in 6 months. How do I find good associates, and how did I go from associate to owner? Just by jumping in. I mean, just like podcasting, man. It's like you've been doing podcasting now a little bit. Every time you do it, you learn a little bit more,
Yeah,
and
I
you
mean,
make some mistakes. You make some failures.
it's just consistency, right? And that goes to everything. So
Yeah.
it's more about doing it rather than perfecting it
Yep.
because that happens over time.
And back in the early days, how did I evaluate an associate? I may have looked at their resume and asked them like, "What procedures do you like to do?" and get a vibe and an interaction. And today, it's a very different algorithm. I mean, it's evolved over the years, but the big variable for success in an associate dentist is: are they compassionate, empathetic people? Are they going to listen to their patients and engage? Because if they aren't, there goes my reputation. I mean, if they come in and they're cold and they lecture people, or they just don't engage well, dentistry is terrifying. People leave and they feel that, and they
Hmm.
perceive, our patients are very perceptive of those things. And so if I get that vibe that you're kind of, you know, um, not a compassionate person, uh, it's not a good fit.
Yeah.
You also have to have the skills, and I think if you've gotten through dental school, which is a very hard process, you can learn to do any dental procedure.
Right.
When you pass your boards, that can be taught. And so for me, the way I value my associates right now is, are you generating customer satisfaction? Are patients happy with you? And are you productive?
Hmm.
And when you start, a new associate's probably not going to be productive. There's a pretty steep learning curve with
Yeah.
any new office. But in 6 months, I've got to see that you're able to treat patients in a way that the business, it makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I respect your like hire fast, fire faster, but do you feel like that affects you financially too? Because it's a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
money to do the training initially and
yeah.
then to do that. So, that concept, while like a good concept, it seems like a very financially heavy burden.
It is, but what's worse? I mean, you
Like you
retain
drag them out.
people. Yeah, you
Yeah,
drag it on, and it's just
that's
going to
true.
hurt you later.
Yeah.
Um,
But you don't think it would be cheaper to like suss them out for a longer period of time? You just don't have the time for that,
it's a,
you're saying.
you're in a constant sus.
Yeah.
I mean, it's constantly. I mean, I have people for 5 years, and then after 5 years, it's like, man, this relationship's not working
Yeah.
anymore. People grow bitter, or maybe they had aspirations to do something, or there's personal things. You know, things change, and
Yeah.
so I'm not romantic about the idea that I'm a good people developer.
Yeah.
It's you're just constantly doing your best, and you have to give yourself a lot of grace.
Yeah.
And I don't believe anybody, if I'm being honest, there are people that are better at developing people than others, but no one's perfect at it.
Yeah.
There's no perfect mentor or leader of patients. And just as a segue here, my mentorship, it's like I catch you in passing and we talk about a case. It's not a structured didactic program where I require people to attend like lectures on every Wednesday night.
Yeah.
There's no system to it. It's
Yeah.
just a constant thing you're always doing,
Yeah.
training and teaching. And
Yeah. I mean, I even with our relationship, which like just again to give you guys more backstory to us, like for a long time I wanted to work for Robin and I wanted to be one of his associates. And he straight up told me, he's like, I don't want you as an associate. And at first I kind of was like, oh, that hurts a bit. But then, he delved further into like the concept, like, no, I like you too much and I like our relationship. And, for you to become my associate means you're under my like mentorship as a employee and I don't want our relationship to have that. And I really admired that because I think it sounded painful at the moment, but like I think the meaning and the deeper like emphasis he had on like our relationship was what really made me admire his decision in that regard. And I'm glad I went that route and then instead went, worked for other people because I felt like then I was able to keep him not only as a mentor and a friend, but I was able to learn the the dental parts without needing to feel like I was under his like bias as being an employee. And that's been nice too.
thank you. I want to dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, go for it.
I think this is an interesting subject. I
Yeah, we have
mean,
all the time.
we, yeah, you did show interest in working with me at the time when you're moving from Houston to Austin. But a couple things. I mean, number one, timing is everything. And you would be a great associate for us family. I know that. It wasn't so much that I thought you wouldn't be a good fit. It was timing was part of it.
Right.
I also think that, dual relationships are terrifying to me.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
agree.
being a friend and a boss is very hard to be at the same time. Now, I genuinely have a lot of love for all of my associates, but they were employees first, and I
Hmm.
have an obligation to protect and their profession, their livelihood. And
Right.
that's my primary thing.
Right.
Whereas if you're a friend with somebody first, then your primary thing is probably to protect and maintain that relationship.
Right.
Or there's something there, and it can get messy.
Yeah. I agree, and I've learned that the hard way too. Um, and I'm glad you set that boundary from the start. I felt like it was like an important thing you said from the start, and it also gave me more motivation to do other things and know that I didn't have like a fallback in that regard. And it's been great because I've learned so many lessons in other fields. Like, I've worked at another office and realized it wasn't a fit for me, and I'm at a different office. And if I didn't do that, then I wouldn't have learned these important lessons that will help
That's
me
right.
in ownership.
And remember, I had 8 jobs before I opened Forest
Yeah,
Family. So I know that that process takes time. I don't want to be your first job.
yeah,
I don't want to be your second job.
yeah,
I want to be partners in a entrepreneurial thing with you, where you know what you want,
yeah,
and I think that's more exciting. You also were working your first job with somebody I knew and respected in the community. I wasn't gonna
yeah. That's
you know,
true.
take you from another friend, and
Yeah.
there was that aspect too. But it is a unique situation. Like when I moved to Austin, I literally had two friends. I mean, I
Hmm.
knew nobody here, so everybody was a stranger,
Yeah.
and that made hiring and running my workforce better.
Right.
You know,
How do you feel like your relationships in dentistry have kind of developed? Like, do you feel like a lot of your close friends are dentists, or do you feel like you try to set boundaries between your personal friendships? Like ours is unique, I think, in the aspect that, yeah, every now and then we do talk about dentistry, but for the most part, I love talking about movies and music with you too.
hmm
And I feel like, do you feel like you try to set that boundary just because your life is revolved
no,
around it?
I don't think about it.
You
If
think
you
it's
got a
like
good
a,
vibe with somebody,
yeah,
it's look, for most people, it's hard to find connections with people. Period.
yeah,
And if you have something you connect with somebody on, why would you say, "Oh, you're not a dentist," or "You are a dentist"?
yeah,
I don't think about it. My time in 2023 is so capitalized by,
yeah,
first, my family. That's my highest priority, and then my profession. So a lot of my friends are dentists. I mean, I would say that my social outlets are with you, and with other dentists in Austin, or I go travel to speak for Invisalign, and I see these faces that we see all the time, and
right,
those are my friends
yeah,
now.
okay.
It just happened to be that way.
Yeah, because I've had some friends that are like, I just like get so tired of hanging out with dentists because all we do is talk about dentistry. And I'm like, yeah, but like, that's like a connection you share too. And it,
Yeah,
it just adds another layer to that friendship that, hopefully you have other layers to it, but it is something that you can't avoid once you become a
that's
dentist.
true.
You're just surrounded by them.
I feel bad for my wife
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
she's got to, like,
Listen to
she's
teeth.
surrounded by it, man.
Yeah.
If I have a chance to have friends over, it's like, I mean, I have a few non-dentist friends, but it's I mean, I spend most of my time with
Yeah.
dentists.
And Amy's awesome. So I think you know, she's one in a few. So she's
Yeah,
handles it really well.
yeah. Just relationship tip, like, you do have to refrain from teeth talk
Yeah.
when you're,
It's not a very sexy subject as it is. So
no, and it's such a nerdy niche thing. I mean, we're
yeah.
talking about bond strengths and different, you're just gonna,
Yeah. Well,
alienate your other friends.
yeah. I remember we've done that a couple of times in front of her, and then I'm like, take a step back. But she's so used to it, and she's very accommodating of it and understanding. So it's great.
Yeah, she's great. She's used to it
But
now.
with that being said, I guess I'll carry that over to like your personal passions. Like I know obviously Forrest Family has been very much influenced by movies like Wes Anderson, but what would you say is like your identifying passion, since that is the concept of this podcast? Do you feel like there's something that's really influenced you as a person? And like you said, music. Is there anything in
Mhm.
particular that you really want to talk about or focus on?
I learned a lot about new music from. I love your Instagram handle. I like, sometimes a song comes on, I haven't heard that before.
Thanks, man.
But no, music was one of my. I mean, music and art and film. So passionate. I mean, that's where I spent my free time, was
Yeah.
in, art places and going to concerts and stuff. That's what brought me to Austin. And over the years, I mean, I wish I could do that kind of stuff, but
Do you feel like outside of dentistry, you would have gone anything artistic in that regard? Like, did you ever consider going the movie route or anything? Because you got the looks for an actor role. You could have done that. You could have.
So it's a funny story. I thought about it. You know what my segue into that was going to be?
What?
I lived in San Diego, and I
I have a
applied.
question to follow up with that, so let me see what you're gonna say.
Okay, then I have some secret footage, but I applied to be on The Bachelor,
Oh, nice.
and I made it to like their final segments. I was devastated. I didn't get selected. I made it to the final
What
25.
was the deciding factor? Did they tell you?
You know, I so one of the producers in the process, it's like a 6 month process. They
Yeah.
vet you, and then blood and urine, like an 800 question psych evaluation. I mean, it was like very
I
in
got
depth.
I got offered to be on it during COVID, and
That
they
would have been amazing.
yeah, but it was like during COVID, and they were like, not to take away from anything, but they
Yeah.
basically did the same thing. They were like vetting me, and I was like, initially they reached out through Instagram, and I was like, yeah, sure. And then, like you said, there was like I did 5 calls, and after that, they're like, okay, so you're gonna be in this mansion with like all these other guys for like this amount of time. You can't go anywhere else. You can't do anything else. And it sounded awful to me. I was like, I don't want to do that.
Dude,
And yeah, so go on. Sorry to interrupt with that.
I know you well. I think that I was a fan of the show for many years. I haven't watched the last few seasons, but um, man, they have the ability to really break you down,
Yeah.
and you're such an empathetic person. I think that you would have gotten steamrolled,
Oh,
man. It would have been brutal.
I told my friends, I was like, I'd probably be knocked out by the first episode because A, I would be like the guy in the corner, not really like,
No,
being the bro, or like everybody starts taking their shirts off, and I'd be like, I'm gonna go.
whatever, dude. You're super rich.
No, so she was like, they'd ask questions like, like, do you feel like when you walk in a room, like your presence is known and stuff? I was like, probably not. That's like my brother's job. But I think that's like, I didn't get this sixth or seventh interview after that kind of stuff because I basically told them I was like pretty introverted. And
Yeah,
also they were like, are you willing to come out for this couple of months? And I was like, well, I'm a dentist, so that's a lot of my time to take off. And
yeah.
also, my mom was staying with me at the time in Houston, and I was like, I don't think I feel comfortable just leaving her alone. And also, just being in a mansion with like all this testosterone, trying to vie for like this woman
Yeah,
that I don't even know, have never met, like
yeah.
probably don't even know if I'll even be attracted. And yeah, so a lot of my friends were like, yeah, but it's great marketing. Like you'll get so many
That's what
patients
I
after
thought
that.
too.
Yeah. And
Oh
I thought
man.
about it, but I was like, am I really willing to like sell my soul for like a higher clientele of patients?
I don't think you would have sold your soul. I just think that you would have like
Been knocked out by first episode.
no. I mean, the girl could have loved you.
Yeah.
You're super handsome.
But it's,
If you had something in common, you just who's the girl?
well, thankfully, that was the season that she picked the guy on the first episode. So they had to
Oh
like
yeah.
kind of change all this stuff. So I'm like, overall, I think it was a blessing in disguise, but it was nice to like experience that. But anyways, I'm taking away from your bachelor
No,
fun.
I want to talk about you, potential
You would
bachelor.
have been a
We'd have
great
to
bachelor.
we'd have to sit and coach you on strategy because I think that like I know. So this is what they want. They ask these questions to fill an archetype,
Right.
right? And they want to get a room full of archetypes
That's
that are gonna
true.
like make the best
To
TV.
be honest, I haven't seen a full season of The Bachelor. Like I've dated so many people that watch it, and I've
Yeah,
somehow always found a good excuse to avoid that
it's
situation.
cheesy,
But I think it's
but
good. Like it's great entertainment. They know exactly. They've had it down to a formula. So you're right. I
it,
never
it
thought about the archetype thing. That
it's
makes so much sense.
brilliant
Yeah.
TV. And
Yeah.
you get these people, and you can curate it. You like psychologically know you get this person is oil and this person's water, and you
Yeah.
get
And
them in
you
the
put them
same
in the
room, and they're
room.
gonna make great
Yeah. It's all
TV.
down to a science.
It's down to a science. I knew that I didn't know what I was getting into. I was very naive about the process,
Yeah.
but I thought it was going to give me exposure, maybe get me into Hollywood. I
Right.
was in San Diego. Oh, maybe I'll move to LA. Like, I remember thinking all these things. And when I went on this date with the producer, she's like, it's a blessing you didn't get on. And she didn't tell me why, but I was like, they wanted me to fill a
What
archetype.
was the archetype?
Um, probably a sensitive dude.
Yeah.
And the sensitive dude,
They get
they get them
steamrolled.
they just end up crying on some rock for TV,
Yeah.
and then you're known forever as
Yeah.
the dentist that
And at that period of time, I don't think sensitive guys were what they are seen as now. I think at that time, it would have been more of like a joke against you.
Well, it would have been hard to deal with because I am a sensitive guy, but I'm
Yeah.
also like, I'm having, now I have to protect and provide for a family. And
Yeah.
so my likes and interests have changed
Right.
drastically since that responsibility. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, back then I was just this single nice guy. And I think that, American public gets to decide how to edit you, it gets to decide. But I would have hated to expose myself emotionally on public TV and
Yeah.
be typecast
It
by every
is. It's
person I said.
people always like misjudge me because of my social media because I do love, sharing the things I share and I'm pretty outspoken on there. But
Yeah.
for the most part, when you've met me, like I'm pretty quiet and like reserved in most situations and like just being on a show like that just terrifies me because I know you have to kind of blow yourself up in a way, like show more of who you can
Yeah.
be. And I think that's a lot. And yeah, it's pretty overwhelming to think of. So I'm glad we both went the different path. I think we ended up on a better path overall.
I think that you have a really big opportunity in your artistic, like your creative expression. Bachelor would have been bad, maybe, unless you had put on a persona that wasn't you
Yeah, I
and you
mean,
weren't authentic.
there's always stuff that could have come out of that, but yeah, I'm happy with where I'm at now, and
Well, I love this.
yeah,
Podcasting lets you have conversations for hours and
it's been incredible, and it's definitely been a selfish endeavor, like just to be able to like, you're a busy guy, and you mentioned it before, like even with the mentorship and friendship we have, I have to really like, I almost like apologize to Robin once a week because I'm like, sorry for blowing up your phone again, because I'm like constantly like trying to figure out a time to hang out and talk with him because I always have these ideas and these like I'm constantly sending him stuff. I'm like, I have a new idea. Can we talk about it? Can we do
yeah.
this? And like, he's got like 4 kids right now to take care of. He's got a wife, he's got a business, and somehow he manages to make time for me. So, genuinely means a lot to me that you even have this time. So,
I love it. And if I didn't enjoy it, we wouldn't be doing it.
yeah,
So you
exactly.
just got to do what you love doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, outside of The Bachelor and that whole route that you went, I was going to tell you that, or I was going to ask you first, if there was a movie that was going to be made for you based on your life story, who would you want to play your character?
Jake Gyllenhaal, because he looks like me. But,
That's
I mean, we both love Ryan Gosling. It'd be great if it was Ryan
yeah.
Gosling, but
I think I was thinking Jake Gyllenhaal, and for some reason I feel like Henry Cavill would be a good one.
oh man, that guy's chiseled.
Yeah, I think he's got a good salt and pepper thing going on too.
Yeah,
But who do you think Amy would, your wife, would have as her character?
a younger Jennifer Connelly.
Oh, I could see that for sure.
Yeah, I think it's my type.
She's current Jennifer Connelly is
I
killing
know,
it too in
I
Top
know.
Gun. Wow,
I actually find older Jennifer Connelly more
I do
attractive than
too.
younger Jennifer
I
Connelly.
agree. I think it's just like I don't know. She just looks like how they always like say like men look better as they age and like the wrinkles give them character and stuff.
Yeah,
Like I thought she looks great. Like
Top Gun,
yeah, and
smoke show.
yeah, it was a great movie overall though. But yeah, what was I gonna? Let's see. I had a couple of questions, but I feel
Wait, I
like
want to know whose cast is you in your movie.
I had that question just now with one of my friends. I mean, obviously Ryan Gosling would be ideal, but I think ethnically it wouldn't make much sense.
Oscar Isaac.
No, I really like
He's got a good beard. You gotta have a good beard.
yeah, that would be great.
You gotta have striking features.
Oscar Isaac's been killing it lately. Who's the guy that the drum movie on Amazon that just came out recently? Riz
No,
Ahmed.
no, I don't
Riz
know.
Ahmed.
Gotta look
Yeah,
him up.
he's a great actor. He's been in a couple movies. One of my friends said the other guy from Lion is a brown actor. He's
Lion?
yeah.
You have to check that one out.
That movie where he was with a tiger in a boat.
Oh yeah,
That guy.
yeah. Life of Pi.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
pretty
He's really good.
pretty stuck in the brown actor realm, so I'd have to pick somebody there.
I don't know, man. There's some pretty hand. I like Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac is a good one. I'll
He's
take
got
that.
you guys both have like striking eyes.
I'll take that, man. I
You,
appreciate it.
you take that one.
But yeah. So, what else was I gonna bring up? I'll edit this part out. But yeah, no, I was curious in terms of your next path in dentistry. Do you see yourself we've talked about the entrepreneur route and
Mhm.
what you want to, we currently are trying to think about things we can do together professionally in that realm. And I was curious, is there a path you're currently seeing yourself in the next 5 years taking? Do you see yourself stepping out of dentistry in the next 5 years? Do you want to kind of continue to be in it until?
Yeah, no, I love dentistry, and even though it would make better financial sense for me to be a CEO in a company, I can't. It's what I know. It's what I love, and I also believe that if I get out of practicing dentistry, I'm just like,
You're gonna lose that drive.
yeah,
Yeah,
I want to teach dentists.
yeah,
So I think I'll get back into teaching again. Since having my daughter, I've kind of taken a break, and COVID happened, and they cut down traveling. Zoom teaching was the worst, so I just said I'm going to take a break from that.
yeah. Do you
If
think
you,
you'll go back into Invisalign, or do you want to do something more hands-on, like teaching at the schools or doing courses with Kois and all that?
I won't teach at schools. I got this thing. No, not going to
It's a
teach at
lot of
schools.
politics involved in the
Too
schools,
much
I've heard. Yeah,
politics, and I just unless I know the school and like Bill Robbins teaches at UTSA, and
yeah,
I have so much respect for him. Maybe if they ever invited me, then I would go. I
yeah.
went to UT a couple times and did lectures, but it was always like a guest lecture kind of
Right,
thing.
like a pre-dental kind of
Yeah,
lecture thing.
yeah, I love that. And I love just being with people and talking about what I love. Um, but no, Invisalign's been fantastic to me, and they've given me a platform to talk about what I want. And really, my dream would be to do something with John Coyce, just
Yeah,
because of the
there.
level of respect I have for him.
Yeah, it's
It's,
been. I mean,
yeah,
that guy sounds like a beast. Like I can't
he's,
imagine how long he teaches his courses, and he does it multiple times.
yep.
And they're not just like 2 hour course. Like he'll stand up there for like hours, right?
Oh, I mean, the course is like 5 days, and they're 10-hour lectures,
Wow,
all given by him.
that's nuts.
It's his endurance is amazing, but it's also just how much evidence he packs into like
And he updates that evidence yearly. It's
constantly.
not like a fixed thing.
Yeah, and you got to go like to the symposium once a year to get the updates because evidence is constant. And that's what I love about him is he understands science. He's not pawning off some product on you sponsored by whoever. It's like what does the evidence say? And evidence changes. I
Hmm.
mean, as new studies and longitudinal studies come up, he'll change. He'll say, "Yeah, we've been using this cement for many years, but we're finding this is causing failure. Or maybe the soft drink is breaking it down, or for example, chlorhexidine. He's like, chlorhexidine was the gold standard mouth rinse for perio for
Yeah,
50 years.
not anymore.
John Coyce has black labeled it. He's basically
Wow.
said, I don't offer it anymore because we have something that has the same benefits with no side effects or
What is
less
that
side
one?
effects. It's dilute sodium hypochlorite.
Oh,
It's
wow.
dilute bleach. Well, so chlorhexidine is cytotoxic, and they've shown that. So if you rinse with it after taking out a tooth, it doesn't heal as fast.
Wow.
It does disinfect really, really well, but it also there's an allergic reaction. I mean, there's several people who had anaphylaxis to.
So dilute sodium hypochlorite is better in that regard?
Yeah, there's no. I mean, no one is allergic. It's you basically swishing with pool water.
Yeah.
It tastes
I
terrible.
know, and it doesn't sound like it would be the right option between the two, but that's
Yeah, I
amazing.
know. And maybe the evidence will change. I do think that there could be something that happens in the enamel interface with something that's high in pH that could be that caustic. There is evidence coming out that maybe on enamel it may have a side effect that's not good, but when it comes to perio disease, P. gingivalis, the red complex bacteria that cause, gum inflammation, it does just as well as chlorhexidine.
Yeah. The one
So,
thing I love about you, which I think is not common across dentists that I work with, I mean, it should be more, but I think with the amount of learning we do, what drives you to keep wanting to learn more about it? Like what keeps you going with it? Because I feel like dentistry, unfortunately, is a field that can very much get you jaded very fast and
mm,
get you tired of the profession. Do
hmm
you feel like you ever experienced that at any point in your time?
of
Because
course.
I went through that period last year. I feel like I wasn't the best dentist I could be. I didn't show up to that office and for those people as best as I could. And it was because I was going through a lot of personal stuff at the same time. And I think, I don't want to always use that as an excuse, but I did lose that love for dentistry. And that's why I had to leave the office. It was nothing personal, but I
hmm
also wasn't giving them the best and they weren't the best environment for me either. So
hmm
when you have experienced that, how did you keep it going and how have you kept it going since then?
Good questions. Yes, dentistry, and I think probably like most professions, a lot of it is not fun,
Hmm.
and people do get burnt out. It's very taxing emotionally,
Yeah.
but uh, there's so much to it. There's so much more to learn. I think that's what keeps me coming back. Is that the second I get complacent, I'm like, oh well, I could just get better at this one other thing or learn about this other thing. And really, the most exciting thing that's happened to me in the last 6 years is teaching. And teaching has allowed me to. It's like if I'm gonna teach someone, I better know it really well. So I got to go learn more. And then as I'm learning more, I'm like, oh dang, this is really cool. And yeah, it inspires me to continue growing there. I think the way to prevent burnout, A, recognize the signs of it. You know, a lot of young dentists, especially now, are getting their first jobs in corporate dentistry where there's, pressure to produce and quotas and things like that, and they get lost in the task.
Hmm.
I think you have to not allow that to happen. It either needs to be about the people connection, because the people connection is the best part of dentistry, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Continual education, growing, knowing that you're never really going to master this. It's always going to be growth. There's always something else to learn.
Right.
And you got to take breaks. You got to know your limits too.
Yeah.
Like some people can do a 10-hour shift. Some people, it's like, maybe you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guilty of that too. When you like start to work so much that you lose your identity in the process and you
Yeah.
forget what kind of dentist you are, and you're just doing procedures just to do them, and you're knocking out crowns and stuff without even thinking about the patient anymore. You're just focused on the tooth, and it's very easy to get lost in that. And I think every time I've left an office, I've also like left a piece of myself in the office and I had to kind of relearn who I
Mm-hmm.
was after leaving. Just like a relationship, I think
Mm-hmm.
it happens. Like you just basically are experiencing a different part of yourself at every office and you have to figure out what's right for you. But yeah, I was curious about that because I felt this like burnout last year. And it's because I also, on top of COVID, I had never taken any time off. And then I finally started to take some more time off last
Mm-hmm.
year and I was realizing I was just like not happy where I was working. And it was at no, personal offense to that place. It was just that, if it's just not the right fit, it's not the right fit, just like relationships. And I think, unfortunately, I have a lot of friends that work in dentistry now that are still working at those offices that they're not happy at, but they
Mm-hmm.
think that that's the only option they have, or they
Mm-hmm.
don't want to leave. That's that fear of like taking the next step. So, yeah, it's inspiring to see you doing what you're doing and still loving what you're doing because it is a very demanding profession in that
Mm-hmm.
regard. And to lose that passion can be very easy, especially in the social media world. I think we
Mm-hmm.
live in a world of constant comparison now,
Yeah.
too. So you go online, you see one dentist doing so well and just killing it. And again, just like everything with social media, you're seeing all the highlights of their dental career. You're not seeing like
Yep.
the lowlights, like you mentioning the 8 jobs you worked at before. Like nobody knew that, but it's good to know that kind of stuff because you just normalize that you've been through failures before you've gotten
Oh yeah.
your success. So, um, yeah, that's an important thing. I think a lot of dentists need to realize, and patients. I think a lot of patients also assume that the most successful dentist is just like been doing well his entire life,
Mm-hmm.
but he only got there from like unfortunately treating some patients poorly and learning from that, and now they're in a better place to know and understand what's better for them. So yeah.
I think you touched on a lot of important things there. Social media and the comparison is the theft of joy,
Right.
and we're constantly doing that. That wasn't around in 2008.
Yeah.
When
It's
I got out of school, I didn't feel inferior every day by looking at my phone.
yeah.
So that was a big thing. Um, Man, when it comes to your experiences in your job, I know you well enough now that I know that when you come into an office, you're not just giving them your dentistry. Like you'll change the culture, environment, website, art on the walls, the music patients listen to. You imprint yourself in there. And a lot of corporate offices, they don't give a crap about that.
Mhm.
They're like, just produce, man. Like, I don't care, but you're pouring your heart. It is like a relationship.
Yeah.
And, I think there are opportunities where people appreciate that as an associate. Unfortunately, the best place for that is when you have equity in it, because then it's lasting,
Right.
and you get to see the fruits of that labor.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't have equity, then the fruits are received by the owner.
Yeah.
I think two books come to mind. I think The Gap in the Game, which I just read. A friend of mine recommended to St. Crawford about a year ago, and I read it, and it's about comparison.
Mm-hmm.
And the gain mindset is every day you think about all the things you learned and gained, and you are mindful and grateful for the environment you're in. The gap mindset is always trying to get somewhere else. Like, I have to be better. And so in your brain, it's like the dopamine, there's chemical reasons, there's research on this, but you're actually weakening yourself by always comparing yourself to a future self or striving for something else instead of just appreciating what you did that day.
Mm.
So that's a good thing. And then, when it comes to the equity, I think of what's it? Uh, Nassim Talib, I think is his name. He wrote the Anti-Fragile book, but he also wrote Skin in the Game,
Okay.
and it's really about the profound sense of ownership and pride you feel when you have skin in the game.
Right.
And as an associate, I think many associates, I try to create an environment where my associates feel they have skin in the game, even though they didn't have to put equity out.
Yeah.
But it's really important that you feel like you can impact change in your office and you get credit for the change you
Yeah.
impacted.
I 100% agree. I mean, I feel that all the time, and we've talked about it. I think it's not only like, do you feel like you want to do more, but you feel more passionate about doing it because it reflects who you are, because you now are part of that whole thing. So when people see that, you're like, well, that's a representation of me. Whereas when you're an associate or employee, you're like, this isn't a representation of me, it's a representation of who I work for. So I don't have to try that hard, and I'll put in like 20% effort in that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And there is a little bit of that like bitterness where when you do it and they get praise or something for it, you're like, that was me. Like, I did that, but I'm not going to get any of that credit.
Right.
So there is a little bit of that, and that's not always good for the dynamic of the profession. But you brought up, your books, and I was going to ask, like, as a business owner and as an entrepreneur, I've been on this, like, I know it's taken me 33 years to get here, but I'm on this path now where I'm constantly trying to read and learn more. And I wanted to know what your resources are that you'd recommend for somebody like me or anybody that's just wanting to grow more as an entrepreneur and as a businessman, like things that you felt have really impacted you in that kind of path of your life. Podcasts included.
Yeah, well, man, there's so many things that have shaped my perspective on the business. I think prior to opening my practice, the most important book I read was E-Myth, which basically says that you can't be the technician, a manager, and an entrepreneur at once. You need to find and delegate those three specific tasks. And dentists fail at this the most because dentists are good dentists, and they come in and they try to manage a team, and they try to grow their business and do dentistry at the same time. And I struggle with that a lot too, but you have to have people you trust with those skills. I think that's the most important book dental practices should read.
It's called E-Myth?
E-Myth.
Okay.
It's short. It's like 100 pages, but to the point.
E-M-Y-T-H.
Yeah, E-M-Y-T-H.
Okay.
The entrepreneurial myth.
Okay.
That's the big one. I read Slice of the Pie, which is to do with how to manage people early on, and it was very impactful. Anti-Fragile was one of the big ones that shaped my perspective of how I want to create my business. And dentistry is hard. It's a robust business, even in a down economy. Dentists do well, but to create a business that actually thrives on days like today, where you're shut down and you actually get stuff done, like in my anti-fragile brain, I wouldn't be able to do this podcast with you today if it wasn't for the freeze that closes all our offices down.
Right.
So who knows the impact this will have. Hopefully it's a positive one on a few people, but you have to think like that. Like every bad thing that happens is an opportunity for you to grow.
Right.
So that was a really good book. And then for dentists, the breakaway course, I don't know how much it's changed, but I took that course in 2011. And it just gives you a framework on how to open an office. Like, you need to find this contractor, this attorney, boom, boom, boom. Do these things before you open your own de novo office. Really, really good. Today and now, I mean, most of the books I read are how to maintain and not collapse under the weight of all that I'm responsible for.
Right.
So, I read books on, I really like Ryan Holiday and the Stoicism
I'm
movement.
a big fan of Stoic
So
philosophy.
dope.
Yeah, it's helped me through a lot, like in the last year. But yeah, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
pretty simple concept. Sometimes it can be very like cut and dry, like,
hmm
but I think it's necessary reminders about things. But yeah,
I mean, the concept of being tolerant of others and strict with yourself. There's many tenets to the
yeah,
Stoicism,
Marcus
but
Aurelius was like this. I don't know how that
dude,
guy,
it
like,
yeah.
incredible.
You don't lose your mind when
No,
someone disappoints you, and you're just like, okay, I got to be strict with myself, be
yeah,
tolerant of others.
an
I really,
obstacle being a part of the path and everything.
yeah, and you get accepting of the bad things.
Yeah,
So I do a lot of that. I listen to Ryan Holiday, and he's got daily meditations, and they're really cool. Um, I love podcasts. I love learning from, you know, I really there's this guy in Austin. His name's Tim Kennedy, and he's ex Green Beret. I read his book Scars and Stripes, and it's basically this concept that you need heroic men to protect and preserve life. I feel like one of my biggest anxieties is I have 4 kids.
yeah,
So I'm like, I mean, 2020 when I felt like the world was going to collapse, and I didn't have a job anymore because the
yeah,
government forced me to shut down. I was
yeah,
like, dude, I got to teach my kids how to survive.
yeah. Interesting.
So I've gone all survivalist like
Yeah.
mode, and I learn how to survive, protect myself, run to gunfire, the
Have you
Uvalde thing.
have you seen The
Definitely.
Last of Us? This is
Dude,
completely.
loved Last of
Oh my
Us.
God.
Played the game,
Yeah.
but the last episode, the third one was
Yeah.
like brilliant.
Well, I was
So
thinking the
romantic.
first episode reminds me of you because, like, the father son or the father daughter kind of
Yeah,
relationship. Like, there's nothing that's stronger than that bond.
yeah,
And yeah, the game is beautiful. Like, even the ending, like, the twist is just like it's amazing how they made you identify with and understand why he made that decision because you would do the same thing in that situation, right? And
yeah,
yeah, like the survivalist situation, I was like, that's totally Robin. Like, I could totally see you
yeah.
doing that at the end.
Totally. And it's a weird, cool passion too. It's really interesting when you get into it. Like,
Yeah.
there's this whole world of mastery of yourself,
Yeah,
and
there's
you
YouTube
gotta,
videos of these guys that do those things, like
yeah,
create things out of nothing and live in
yeah,
the forest and whatnot. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, that's another thing I was going to bring up with people is Robin and I have a great relationship where I've learned a lot, not only with dentistry and stuff, but I think even with like politics and the way we discuss things. We don't have the same.
let's talk about politics.
No, no.
Yes.
we
How we battle. How you post
that
something,
that
and I'm
can be.
like, hey, did you ever think about this?
Yeah, during the peak of 2020, obviously Trump is the president, and I'm a brown Muslim guy, so I have some views that are a little bit different than others on that. And I think the great thing was it was such a very, it was like a high intensity moment where
Yeah,
everybody was on edge, everybody was unhappy, everybody was frustrated. And I was guilty of that too. I was sharing a lot of stuff from just pure feeling instead of logic. And I would get fight back from friends who were Trump
me.
supporters or something. But then
It's like,
I
I'm
would,
not a huge
no, no,
Trump
no, but I
guy,
would
but
also get like,
yeah,
Robin messaging me with a different approach where he was like, I don't agree with this, but like, I want to hear your like train of thought in it. Or, hey, like, let's talk more about this. And it was great because it never felt like any of the conversations were aggressive or heated. They just
yeah,
felt like it was both of us trying to understand each other's logic and perspective. And a lot of the times I respected his perspective and learned more from it. And, sometimes hopefully like I gave you my perspective and it made sense sometimes. But
yeah. Well, at
I,
least you'd engage in the conversation.
yeah, I mean, I learned a lot to not write off things like that because I wasn't good at that before. Like there used to be times when I would just write people off. Like I was like, okay, you're a Trump supporter, like you're racist, and I don't want to talk to you again. But then I learned over time that there's people that don't necessarily support the person, but obviously like financially there are things that are beneficial in that regard. And there's a lot of stuff, that are like there's nothing that's like black and white. And I learned there's a lot of gray in everything. And it took me the quarantine and being alone and having to like really like invest time in learning more about things like that. That was great. And I think you taught me a lot of that in our relationship, that you can have opposing views and completely different philosophies on things, but you can still get along and find a middle ground in all of that. And I think you were one of the main proponents for that for me, and it's taught me a lot on how to communicate with friends that I don't agree with anymore.
Mm.
Like I used to approach people with a much more heated approach and automatically write people off, but now I try to be a little bit more discerning between what they're saying and what they actually mean.
Mm.
So that's been pretty great.
Well, that's a profound thing. I appreciate that I've been able to
Yeah.
do that. Many people won't have those conversations. I mean, I have many left-leaning friends that if I even mention like
Gun rights or
yeah, I mean, the
yeah.
Second Amendment to me is like the most important thing America has going for it, and I have
Yeah.
a strong opinion about it. But I would love to sit with somebody who is anti-gun and have a conversation with them about why that is, and get down to the core of it
Yeah. I think
and what the best way to move forward as a country and as an individual, like in your home.
yeah, I've
Yeah,
enjoyed listening to like Lex Friedman on that kind of stuff because I
yeah,
think he approaches everything in a very middle ground approach. Like even when Kanye's been having his kind of tirades and going
yeah,
crazy, that interview was great because I think he still approached it from a very neutral stance. He
yeah.
didn't attack Kanye or jump at him, even though he was
He
getting
stood his
attacked.
ground, which I was really impressed
Right,
with.
and I think that's important lesson I learned in that too is like, in spite of all that, if you are disrespected, it's important to still stand your ground and like stand right with your beliefs, but still be
Hmm.
as respectful as you can because you can't let them drag you down to their level too.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I've been trying to be better about that, and I, appreciate you teaching me more about that in that
Yeah,
regard because I feel like if it wasn't for that relationship, I would have probably still been. I don't share that stuff anymore because I don't see any benefit in it. I've seen a lot of
yeah. I feel the same way. Social
yeah.
media is not a good place to have political
Yeah, I
discourse.
think there's enough negative stuff online, and I
Hmm.
think the biggest focus I've had in social media is just to focus on the positivity. And we've talked about there's toxic positivity, but there's also just like general positivity. And if I can say something nice about somebody, genuinely nice, I'd rather do that than just like go on a tirade and talk, complete shit about somebody that I don't like. Like it doesn't benefit anyone, and if anything, it causes more conflict and dispute. And it just makes my day worse overall. So yeah, it's been a ongoing learning process and struggle. So
Yeah, yeah, totally. We have a mutual friend. I don't know him very well, but like he would post something, and I'm like, you just alienated half people. I have beliefs like this, and you just called me a racist.
yeah,
I'm not a bigot,
yeah,
but I do believe in the Second Amendment. So
yeah,
like, and you get in these conversations, but some people won't even have it.
yeah. I
They'll
think
block you. They'll delete you. They're like,
I
I just
try to
want to have a
also
conversation.
empathize with that because I think it could also be their upbringing, like
Yeah,
considering their background, they may have experienced a
totally.
lot of hate and alienation because of who they are or how they've grown up to be. And I think they're used to that. And as a reactive mechanism, they react defensively to
Right.
anything that seems like an attack or an
Yeah,
infringement on them. So I also try to empathize with that too because,
it's
like,
true.
I don't know. Like I don't think it's like a perfect response, but I also don't think it's a bad response. I think it's it's their defense mechanism.
Yeah,
And
and you got to give respect to people's boundaries.
right, and they're still great people. Like the mutual friend we have, I think is a great
Yeah,
person, and I just think I've had to like just realize every single human I meet is probably going to have a completely opposing view, but they're also going to have a lot of similar things that we share in common, and I have
yeah.
to focus more on those and appreciate those instead. So
My my brother's a therapist, and the one thing you have, I mean, he's taught me too, is you can't try to fix people,
yeah,
like especially if they didn't want to be fixed.
right,
And I slide in someone's DMs. It's usually because they're a close friend, and I'm like, "You sure you mean that?" Like,
yeah.
let me just challenge this,
No, I
and
think it.
I get enjoyment out of
Yeah,
engaging in the sparring. But no, I think that the fact that you're open to it. I mean, my brother, who is a therapist, also has told me that in order to move past certain things and trauma from you, you have to confront them,
right.
and you can't just block out everyone with opposing views. You have to discuss it and get down into it and get
Yeah.
dirty with the idea. And I just like that you're open to those.
Yeah, I
You know what I
mean,
mean?
it's cool to see the other side of it because, it's fun to like think a certain way and then completely be blasted from the opposing perspective and realize like, oh, I was like completely wrong in that regard, or like I didn't even think about it in that way. And it's been great to learn that because I mean, growing up in high school, I could probably say I was pretty homophobic just because like you grow up in that environment. People call everybody the F word and like,
Yeah,
just disrespect that entire group. And now my best friend is gay, and it's been so great to hear his perspective on the community and growing up in that lifestyle. And yeah, it's one of those things like if I wasn't open to meeting this person and talking to them, I would have never appreciated that and learned so much. And now like I feel like a big part of my personality is because of him and that community, because it's like made me identify with like being more comfortable with my feminine side and all this other stuff. So yeah, it's
that's
been
awesome.
cool. But
Yeah,
yeah, I agree. I can't wait to meet your brother one day. Seems like a cool guy too.
yeah, he's a really cool guy. I got
But
two brothers. They're both cool guys.
yeah. Well,
One's a lawyer, so
yeah. Well, at least
not
you
as
get
interesting.
protected in case anything
That's
goes down.
right. No, he's a great lawyer. He's really good.
Well, so what's your I guess I want to do another episode with you and
Yeah,
maybe we can focus more on things outside. I think the big thing I was excited about with this is learning about, your dental route and just
yeah,
more in that business ownership. But I think next time we'll talk more about the nerdy stuff and that'll be more for us. This is a one for them, one for us situation.
yeah. I'll talk music, and I gotta get polished up on the music stuff, man. I
Yeah.
gotta
Well,
get out there and
yeah, we sometimes we'll hang out and we'll listen to records together, but we haven't done that in a while, so
yeah,
we'll have to. But honestly, it was such a pleasure having you on here. I'm super honored to know you, and I can't wait to have you again. Before we leave, though, do you have any questions or anything that you had for me? Usually, I try to end it with like giving the guest a chance to ask me
ask a
anything
question.
or
Oh man,
just
I
any
should have
curiosities you might have
saw
had.
that. Should have saw that coming. Hmm. Only thing that's coming to mind right now is I gotta have you out to the ranch and hang out with Amy and the kids
I'd
and
love that. Yeah,
go fishing and shooting and all that
go
stuff.
hunting hogs and stuff.
Get you some cowboy boots.
Yeah, I'm still looking for some. I wore these boots in your honor today because I was like, I know you're a boot
I
guy.
didn't know we were both gonna wear boots, but
Yeah, got my Red Wings. I love these
I used to
boots.
hate boots.
Really?
No, I when I was a Californian coming to Texas, I thought the cowboy
Cowboy boots were
culture was the
stupid.
worst, the dumbest thing I've ever
Yeah,
seen. I grew up in Fresno, which is like a rodeo town,
yeah.
but I thought it was dumb.
No,
But
boots are awesome, and
they're so awesome.
I've wanted a pair for the longest time, but it's one of those things like because boots can last the rest of your life, so I want to make
Yeah,
sure whatever I get is like my pair. Like
yeah,
it like has that connection to you.
totally.
So yeah, I can't wait to go boot shopping with you.
Yeah, I'll get some boots.
But yeah, I am curious when you initially met me, did you have like any first impressions or anything, or were you just like, oh, this is exactly like what I expected? Because I feel
Oh
like my
no.
Instagram personality and you
Yeah,
are completely
I
different.
think you hear it a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
your Instagram persona and your in-person persona are
Yeah.
different.
Okay.
And I remember thinking, I mean, when I hadn't met you, I was like, dude, this guy's one of the most creative guys. He's going to be such a great storyteller for our profession. I just can't wait to, and I still believe all that is true.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But it's so cool to see that this very loud, very creative person on the internet, off the internet, is a very empathetic, maybe introverted, maybe too strong to say, but you are a thoughtful, kind of quieter person, and I was surprised by that. I remember when I first met you. It's been a couple of years now, but I was like, he is way more introverted than I thought he would be.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think, yeah, it's a very common response. And
yeah,
most of my friends will even be like, man, I feel like I have to like talk softer when I'm around you and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, sorry. It's just, but yeah, I think a lot of creatives are like that. I think a lot of us
yeah.
is expressed through the mediums, which is like definitely for me, which I love because I feel like I've had a lot of like stuff to like really let out, and Instagram and all this stuff has really given me that, and it's helped me
Mhm.
mentally too. And I'm sure
I agree.
dentistry is like that for you. Like you get to like really put a lot of yourself out there with your profession, so it's beautiful.
I Yeah, I'm very thankful we're in the time around. I think you've got a lot of powerful and beautiful things to say and get out there, and I just am very excited to be alongside and supporting
Thanks, man.
these endeavors.
I take
So,
it as like an accountability thing. It's like nice to like hear that from me because it reinforces me wanting to do these things. So it means a lot to me. But anyways, I just want to say again, thank you for being who you are. Thanks for being on this podcast. And we're at 1 hour and 30 minutes. So it was a solid talk. And
solid.
I want to tell you guys thank you for listening. If you guys have any questions for Robin, do you want to share your Instagram and Forest
Yeah,
Family info for people?
for sure. I have 3 Instagram handles, but Robin Bethell or Dr. Robin Bethell is my private one, and then Blue Door Dental Design is Blue Door, and Forest Family Dentist is Forest Family. My email address is just my name at gmail.com, so robinbethel at gmail.com.
And I'll share this all on the info. So if you guys have any questions for him, any curiosities, Robin is an amazing dude. Uh, I'm sure he's happy to respond to any
Yeah,
questions you might have about dentistry, business ownership, entrepreneurial stuff. Just feel free to reach out to him or let me know if you have any questions for him. I can save them for the next interview that we will definitely have in
yeah,
a couple
that's
of
awesome.
months. But anyways, thanks for hanging out, guys. And this is Hamza. Take care.